from Hooked on World reporting for How TV. We're live on the couch at the ACT Music Awards, or better known as the Mamas, with Big Dave from KP Records.
How you going, Hannah?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm real good. Free drinks, free food. Well, can't complain.
The nominees for Best ACT Urban Artist are KO Marvelous, Bushland Prodigies, and Big Dave. I can tell by the screams of the ladies that Dave's known as Big for a different reason. Okay, and Anna, the winner is...
Look, I'm really disappointed that you didn't win. How are you feeling about it?
It's all good, you know. I think these awards are not just good for the music industry in Canberra, but good for up-and-coming people like KO to get a leg into the industry.
And how do you feel the music industry in Canberra is for a hip-hop artist such as yourself?
A few years ago, there wasn't really much here, you know what I mean? And my brand KP, we started, putting on events. You know, we brought like Ice Cube, D12, Tech 9, Bone Thugs and Harmony, people like that to town. And we started to use that as a sort of a springboard to build up the scene here. We've recently signed distribution contracts with Wide Awake Death Row in the States, and I think from off the back of what we're doing, the hip-hop scene in Canberra is really growing.
Okay, so that's a pretty impressive lineup with those artists. Yeah. How did you get in contact with those?
It varies. I was mentored in the industry by the president of Death Row Records, John Payne, and he's been a great asset to our company. You know, he can put me in touch with these big names in the States, platinum selling rappers, that sort of stuff. Other times, some of them are just touring and they hear about what we're doing, they get in touch with us and we say, hey man, Canberra would love to have you here, like Ice Cube, whatever, and bang, we put it together.
That's great. So you've recently released a LP, Self-Made.
Yeah.
This was in September this year?
That's right.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about your journey towards releasing that and how you felt when it came out?
Yeah, no worries. As an artist, your dream is to put an album out, put a release out, and to have something finally out there was just the best feeling. The journey to putting it out was a long one, was a tough one. A lot of internet releases, a lot of free downloads. I've been a hip hop fan since I was a teenager, so it's been a long progression. Learning to write, learning to construct songs, signing a producer to the label that could actually put the instrumental side to it together, and then getting distribution. As I said, it's a relief, and I'm proud of the release. So get out there and cop Self-Made.
Good. And the single off the album, The Good Life.
Yeah.
Why did you pick that one as the single?
I've had a pretty, fairly hard life. I've spent time in prison. Came from a bit of I guess what you call a broken home, and the last couple of years it's all been flipping around. I've started getting success in my music career, and things have been going really well. So I thought, I'll try and capture that vibe in a song, and The Good Life was that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And all the inspiration for your lyrics, you say, comes from your sort of life and your background.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that kind of life and background, do you think that you'd be in a different place now with your music?
I think so. I think I probably wouldn't be into music, you know what I mean? I needed when I was serving time, I needed a creative outlet, and having been a hip hop fan, I naturally gravitated towards that, and it's my life that goes into my lyrics and into my songs, and so the way my life's been led me to where I am with my music. Had I not had such a rocky path, I might be a doctor or a lawyer or still doing drugs.
Wow. You did mention before that you put up a lot of free downloads.
Yeah.
Do you think that affected sort of kind of the money that you make back on the album? Do you think that's had any effect?
I think so, yeah. These days with the industry, you got to be engaged with your fans. You got to give people something to get them engaged with you, because there's so much music on the internet. There's so much free music out there. So, I think consistent free downloads and free releases really gave people a taste of what we were doing, and then, we sort of stepped it up, 100% for the album, so that, everyone that had been tuning in, for them it was something like, thanks for following us now. Now the music's at a much higher level, and for people finding me for the first time, it was like, hey, look, this is what we've got to offer.
Good. So you felt like it had more of a positive impact than negative.
Yeah, definitely. Even though I've had that sort of lifestyle, there's only a couple of tracks on the album that talk about the negative times of my life. A lot of them are more my take on the world and my opinions on the world around me. It's not all prison stuff. There's a lot of upbeat stuff on there, dance sort of stuff. Club bangers, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Good. And how big is your international fan base, do you feel, at the moment?
Man, it's still mostly limited to Australia. Through the Wide Awake Death Row connection, we've got a lot of industry stuff going on overseas. Our international fan base is growing, but it's still mostly located in Australia. Yeah.
And how important do you feel like things like the Mamas, the ACT Music Awards, is for a Canberra-based
I think
music
this is
scene?
brilliant for artists like me that are sort of semi-established already. I don't think it's it's more for the producers and the venues and the people that don't really get any recognition. You know, as a vocalist and a rapper and that, you know, I'm already out there in the media and stuff like that. But for someone like a venue or a producer that's behind the scenes, this is something that can really establish them. Or even the guy that won KO, you know, like, you know, he's relatively unknown around Australia, and doing something like this for him might actually help him get a bit of a career going.
What sort of thing have you got planned for the future for your music?
Man, if you tune into cockyprick.com, we have some massive stuff lined up. You know, we've had the last couple of months. You know, we've had some real media attention. You know, we've been I was on Couch Time last week and had an ABC special recently and stuff like that, and we're sort of using that to propel us to our next project. And I think that's going to really turn some heads.
Oh, good. It's been really good to talk to you.
Hannah.
Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Hook on to Hooked On World.